It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. Today's guest is the CEO of MindStrong Fitness, Rachel Freiman. MindStrong Fitness' key focus is using education and habit training to teach women to lose weight while still eating the foods they love so they could never diet again. So you wonder, why do I want to interview Rachel today? Well, I have to tell you, I was a little intrigued. Being a former dancer in my early years, I remember when my mother found out I was surviving on one slice of cheese and an apple a day so I could be skinny to dance. True story. And it's always was this diet mentality. And I see fitness and I see nutrition so differently today that when Rachel and I were connected, I really wanted to understand where she was coming from and understand where this whole business model is today. Well, that was my curiosity, listeners. Let's see what Rachel has to say, and then you're going to have a chance to reach out to her or reach out to Her Success Story and continue to get more knowledge. Rachel, thanks for joining me here today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. And I have to say, I love that you opened with your personal story because what we mostly deal in is weight loss, but we have plenty of women that come to us with similar stories where it's not about weight loss. It's about this healthy relationship with food. And that's really the backbone of what we do is we like to call Healing Relationships with Food, which sounds like it's more aligned with your dancer mentality coming up, which is so normal.
You're talking about is education.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say, okay, so education from an educator.
Yes.
Share a little bit of your background and how this business started. You're in business now for quite a few years, but this wasn't where you started in life.
No, not only was it not where I started, it's never where I imagined I would wind up. I started out as a musician. I went to a performing arts high school. I did my master's in music. And eventually, after 10 plus years of being a freelance jazz musician in New York, I wanted a calmer, more settled life. So I moved to Florida and I started teaching middle school music. And I love teaching middle school. I love that it's such an awkward age and you get to help mold them into being good humans. And it's also an insanely tough job. It's a lot of taking deep breaths. And I used to call it saying woosah to calm yourself down. And the gym just really became my outlet. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a hot mess. I was injured all the time, but I just went to let off steam at the end of the day. And the more I learned about this industry, I was just flabbergasted by how much garbage is out there, how much misleading information. And years later, I learned, I studied, I grew, and lo and behold, I turned it into a high functioning business.
So you started this business when you were still teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's something to be said when you have this idea and you start a side gig. And many, many people do. And many people keep it as a side gig or keep it as a later in life thing. And there's something to, what was your catalyst that went from the very, very safe place, maybe not easy place by teaching by any means, but a safe place with a salary and benefits and very often a pension involved to have the gumption to step in and say, hey, I'm going to actually create this as not just a side gig, but something that supports me for the entire package.
Yeah. Oh, you just hit the scariest moment of my life right on the head. So when I say I was a teacher, that can be misleading because we all know what teacher salaries are like. I was fortunate in that my school let us do before and after school programs. So I had a very healthy 6-figure salary as a teacher that I'd been doing for years and years. And the answer to your question is that it really came down to an energetic moment where I knew I could I think of it as like feeding the baby bird. You can't feed the baby bird every now and then. You have to pay close attention to it if you want it to grow. And I was working 12-hour days to do those before and after school programs to make that salary, which meant that my side gig was truly a side gig. It was squeezing it in on my prep period before and after school. And I just hit a point where I was like, you have two choices. It's going to continue to stay this small, which is fine. You're serving some people, you're helping, or you can make the scariest leap of your life, because that would entail leaving a six-figure salary at that time, my company was probably making $20,000 a year. That was not my take home. That's what the business was making. And I was standing on this cliff saying, you either have to leap and trust and put faith in your own ability and in the universe to catch you, or keep doing what you're doing. And to this day, it was the scariest leap I've ever made and the single most important.
It's always so interesting. I have been a business owner for over 30 years. I remember in my 20s, which was a very long time ago, one of the decisions I made is I was going to be the master of my own destiny.
Yes.
And it was very, very important to me. And I said, I will fail and fail again and fail again, but I'm going to fail on my terms. Maybe it was being fired from my first job out of college. And then I went on to have very, very good jobs and a good career paths. But I just kept saying, I am going to be the master. I could fail. What is when we look at working in health and wellness and nutrition, in building a business?
Yeah.
There's so many times, and I love that concept of, this is not about dieting, because we fail. And I bring this here because we fail at diet. Trust me, I fail at dieting.
Yes. I think the key, I love that you're making this parallel between the two, because it's one that what we talk about all the time within my company is the parallels between running a business and the weight loss diet industry are so parallel, because they all require one thing, and that's redefining what failure means, right? When we can get to a place that failure is simply data and we can put some emotional distance between the two, now we get to do the work, we get to dig in, and most importantly, we get to pick ourselves back up, right? In the business world, you do a launch and it's met with crickets. We're either going to sit there and beat ourselves up and never go into business again, or we're going to feel the feelings, let them pass, and then jump into the data. What went well, what didn't. And it's the same with this journey, right? There's going to be days that you're sticking to your plan perfectly, and there's going to be days that are a hot mess. And it's at that point that we need to feel the feels, give ourselves grace, and then say, okay, what was different about today? What was I feeling? What was going on in life? How can I come up with a plan for next time? And the more we can get out of this all in, all out mindset, this right, wrong, black, white, and learn to live in that gray, that messy gray that so many of us hate, the more successful we're going to be in both areas.
So when you work with your clients, okay, is there an approach you use? Because as I said, I'm a student and I'm a teacher in all things in life, right? And the one thing I have been a student in for many, many years is the journey of health and wellness, because health and wellness is incredibly important to me. Like everything, with my daughter getting married last fall, the appearance was very important in that moment. And there's nothing I like better than a ice cream cone and a bag of peanut M&Ms.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And well, first of all, congratulations on your daughter. And what you're saying is the basis of all this. The diet industry, when I said I started learning about this stuff and I was just flabbergasted, it's because this is an industry designed to make you be all in, all out. You're either eating quote unquote clean 6 days a week, or you've broken your diet. And what we teach a skill called macro tracking. And the beauty of macro tracking is there are literally no good, bad, allowed, or not allowed foods. There's more nutritious foods, right? Obviously, eating a salad is going to have more vitamins and minerals, more nutrients than a donut. But for me, your ice cream cone is my donut. I will never live a life that doesn't include donuts. So I can choose with macro tracking, I can choose to fit a donut into what we call our budget, our quote unquote budget. And is it the most nutritious choice? Absolutely not. Will I still hit my goals in terms of weight loss or building muscle, whatever my goal is? 100%. And what we do with this skill is we get out of that all in, all out, good, bad, not allowed, allowed mindset. And we learn to heal our relationship with food by getting out of those kind of labels.
I love that. I love that. So you're not a woman who sits idle.
No, that's not in my vocabulary.
We kind of got that gist, listeners, if you leaned in and actually call what Rachel said at the beginning and say, so in order to make a six-figure salary as a teacher, so I worked the day gig of teaching the kids, and I had the before school program and the after school program, and there might have been a couple of like one-on-one students over the weekend. So you got that at the beginning, right? So we could safely assume as an interviewer, like, oh, Rachel's not a person who sits idle. It's like, where does Ivy get this information? How well do you listen?
There you go. There you go. You would plus the hour I would spend in the gym on top of that schedule.
Exactly. So being a person has not sat idle. You've built out MindStrong Fitness. Okay. And then you said, and there's more. Why was there a need to do more? I'll always say, because, and I ask these questions, it's like, well, if something's growing, don't you let it grow for a while? Why did you have to extend and do more? Is there another vertical? Like what's going on and why?
Yeah, I think it's that teacher in me. Like you were just saying, you're a teacher and you're a learner in every area of life. And the more that I live in this industry, the more that I see the shakes and the point systems, and I'm just around fitness people, there is this huge gap when it comes to nutrition. Even coaches that I know and respect when it comes to the workout portion, so many of them are trying to help clients by writing out meal plans, by telling them to cut out carbs, all these things that are never going to be sustainable. Because if the client doesn't understand why they're eating these foods, well, now they're relying on you for the rest of their lives if they want to keep seeing results. So we decided at some point, we need every coach in the universe understanding how to teach macros in a way that's sustainable for their clients. Because this is how, we talk a lot about generational wealth, but we focus on generational health. When moms, grandmas, aunts, uncles, teachers start healing their relationships with food, the trickle-down effect happens. And now kids who are hearing their mom say, oh, I feel fat because I ate pizza, they're picking that up. So the more women, especially, I mean, we mostly work with women, but of course this applies to men. The more women we can help within MindStrong, the more change we're making. And the next level of that is the more coaches we can teach to train in our nutrition method. Now we're talking about exponential numbers. So it's really just that teacher need to reach as many human beings as possible.
I love that. And I think it's important. And I have seen and numerous times over the years of cut out the carbs, go keto, go, do points, do this, across the board in so many ways, oh, you're eating fruit. Oh, you can't have fruit unless it's a berry, but you could eat a berry, but you can't have this, but it's like, I'm just having a piece of fruit.
Right. Just let me eat my apple in peace.
Exactly. Please don't dissect my apple. I like apples.
Yes. And it really shouldn't be that complicated. You Google fat loss and you're going to find, you look at 30 articles, you're going to find 3,000 different opinions within those 30. It's overwhelming and it's not necessary.
So how did you devise your methodology? Because, there's a lot of information out there and you were busy, you were at the gym. What drove you to actually really start breaking down this methodology that you found that was sustainable and worked?
Yeah, I love that question because so much, the more interviews I do, the more I talk about this over the years, the more I always see how things trace back to my teacher roots. So there's a big picture answer, and then I'm going to narrow it into that. Like so many things in life, there's a saying that says the thing we struggle with the most is often the thing we become the most passionate about. And for me, it was that struggle. When I started, I was such a mess. I trained for almost a year without seeing results, because I was cutting carbs, I was not eating enough protein, all the common mistakes people make. So that frustration led me to something's not clicking. I don't know what it is. Let me dig in and do some research. So I tried everything in the books like most people. I tried the low carb, I tried the low fat. when I found macros, it was one of those things where I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. Like, why is not everyone in the world teaching macro tracking? But then what I found, and this is where my teacher side really kicked in, there are tons of coaches. I did not invent macro tracking. There are hundreds of macro coaches out there. But what most of them were doing is they were just using a cookie cutter formula. So they would ask their clients things like their height, their weight, their activity level, and they'd pump out some numbers. And the teacher in me understands differentiated learning is a real thing, right? Every student learns differently. Every student's coming from a different place. So I kind of took a step back and said, wait a second. If I'm just pumping out the same goal numbers for one client and then her best friend and then their best friend, how is that supposed to work for each one? That's not realistic to their lifestyle. That's not realistic to their starting place. So the teacher and me really came out, and we call it the MindStrong method. That's what we teach other coaches, is a way to use that formula, but one step up. So we're really making sure that every individual's nutrition plan is tailored to them, their activity level, their lifestyle, and how they tend to eat. None of this is about forcing a square peg in a round hole. It's about, if you love ice cream, let's figure out how to fit that in. If you're someone who loves 8 meals a day instead of 2, cool. This will work for everyone because it's individualized to the person.
Okay, so I have to ask a base question that I did not ask earlier. Can you explain macro tracking, please?
Absolutely, yes. It's funny because when I talk about it, I try to stay big picture to avoid overwhelm, but then the question comes up, what is macro tracking? The short answer is, when you take a nutrition label for any food and you flip it over, it's going to show you tons of information. It'll show you vitamin A, vitamin C, potassium. There are 3 nutrients of which our body needs the most. And those are carbohydrates, we call them carbs, fat, and protein. So the 3 nutrients of which we need the most, we call them macronutrients. We call them macros because it's hip and it's slang. So your macros are simply your carbs, fat, and protein. What we do with macro tracking is we figure out for you specifically, based on your activity level, your height, your weight, your goals, how you like to eat, your personal quote unquote budget. So we're going to tell you, here's how many grams of carbs, fat, and protein you should eat in a day. And from there, it's yours to spend. If you love donuts, fit a donut in. If you love an ice cream cone, fit it in. We want to make nutritious choices the majority of the time, but as long as you stay within your budget, it will work. And that's how we get out of that black, white, good, bad, allowed, not allowed mindset.
I love that. So Rachel, I have to ask you, surprises. I like to ask this question. Since you started this journey, what have some of the surprises been that have come your way?
Oh, that is such a good question. That question itself is a surprise. It's been really fascinating. I had never worked in the online world before. I had many career paths, obviously, between being a musician and being a teacher. And
they usually informed music.
Yes.
You usually perform in front of people.
Yes.
Teaching, you usually do in front of people. Online, you seem to do in front of a video camera. A little different.
Yeah, very different, especially for that feedback part. You know, with kids, you can see the light bulb moments. Sometimes when you're doing a live and you can't see other people's faces, it's like, am I speaking out into the abyss? So I think, most of the surprises have been really positive. You don't always know what's happening on the other side. So to give you an example, 2 years ago, my book was published and it went out there in the world. We saw how many copies we sold. And still to this day, I'll hear from someone who's like, hey, we started a book club in Australia where we're reading your book. And I'm like, I had no idea that was happening, right? It's all behind the other side of the screen. So just the people you get to connect with in this world and the ripple effect that this work has that you don't always get to see day to day has been such a wonderful surprise that grows as my company grows.
I love that. I love that. So as our listeners are curious about the health and fitness side of knowing more about MindStrong, as we expand and there's many fitness people who listen to and coaches of other means listen to her success story, how could they learn more, know more, follow you, connect with you?
Absolutely. So our website is the perfect place to start. We have a free download that's always a fan favorite. It's called Lose Weight While Still Eating Donuts, How to Never Diet Again. So you can find that on our website, which is simply mindstrongfitness.com. We also have an incredible Facebook community. If you Google MindStrong Fitness on Facebook, you'll see just thousands of like-minded women at different stages in this journey, but with that mindset of supporting each other, building each other up. and really of revolting back in a way against this industry that is not designed to be sustainable. We're here to do something different. We're here to make this a sustainable lifestyle.
I love that. So listeners, connect. And I'm always going to say at this moment in her success story, take a moment and say, in Ivy and Rachel's banter, conversation, chatting away here, what resonated for you? What moment was your aha moment? What moment did you say, gee, that's interesting. I'm curious to know more. What was that takeaway? What was that thing that resonated for you? Feel free to take that and write it down. You could put it in the show notes right underneath. And then decide, here's the decision piece. What's that action you're going to take? Moving forward, building forward, succeeding forward is about a series of actions based on learning. Notice your aha, define your action, and to your success here. Stay tuned for more great episodes of her success story, more great conversations that I am so lucky to have. See you next time. If this episode resonated with you, feel free to share that with a friend, 2 or 3. Thank you for joining us here today. See you next week.